When I say the word scene, think of what comes to mind. You probably thought of your favorite moment from your favorite movie, or you probably think of a tense moment from something like Dunkirk, a big battle from something like Game of Thrones, or a triumphant victory from something like the climax of Aliens.
Get away from her, you bitch!
While the scenes that often immediately come to mind are usually great, they're usually a product of the pieces before it. So I wanted to take a look at something a lot of newer writers struggle with, the scenes that come before the things we usually remember first, the scenes that take up the vast majority of your story. These are the scenes that are not flashy, where there is no big battle and there is no triumphant victory. I'm talking about the scenes where it's usually just two people in a room talking. So if you've ever taken any writing class, read any articles, or watched any videos on scene structure, you've probably heard of the funnel method, which looks like this. A scene starts wide and conflict pushes the scene down the funnel to a point, the point of the scene. So I first saw this method in John Truby's book, The Anatomy of Story, the book I referenced in my last video and the book every writer treats as a Bible. And while I think this example did an excellent job of covering the essentials, I found it and a lot of other pieces of advice related to scene structure to be missing what I think are three vital things that are crucial for scene structure. The three things I would add that all writers should keep in mind is to 1. Establish who is driving the scene. 2. Treat every scene as a short film. It must have an easily identifiable beginning, middle, and end with conflict that is in the way of the character's internal or external want and or need. And 3. Establish a new direction. The audience must be presented with either a new dynamic in a character relationship or new information that propels the story and plot in a new direction. So number 2 sounds like I'm just describing the same conflict that would apply to the middle section of the funnel method, and for the most part that is true, but I thought the conflict section of the funnel method was too vague. I wanted to add some of the best advice I had ever heard, which helped me have more compelling conflict in my scenes. That advice is to treat every scene as a short film. Treat each scene as if it has its own mini 3-act structure. If you do this, I promise you, you will elevate your scenes to have more meaningful conflict. I think the perfect scene to showcase a scene utilizing the 3 vital points is a crucial scene from Aliens you likely don't even remember. And the reason I picked this scene is because it's short and not the most exciting, which is likely going to make up the bulk of your story. The scene also is a great example that the person with the external want and or need isn't always necessarily the person that is driving the scene. We see Burke approach Ripley's door with a goal of recruiting her to be an advisor, but Ripley is the one that closes the door. Then we cut to inside the room, using the dinner party method, which is arriving late and leaving early. Notice how Burke and the Marine are already in the room. The film skips the part where they walk in, and it's implied Ripley has already been asked a question in which she refuses, so Burke is the one with the want and need, and his obstacle is Ripley. You'd think this makes Burke the one that drives the scene, but pay close attention to how the camera follows Ripley and frames her throughout the scene. Oftentimes when Burke is talking, Ripley is the one the camera focuses on.
Yeah, but we don't know exactly what's going on out there. It may just be a down transmitter.
So with this in mind, let's take a look at another scene you likely don't remember, this time from Game of Thrones. In this scene, following the dinner party rule again, Cersei is already talking with Tommen. Tommen voices his concern that Cersei is not happy and that she views Casterly Rock as her real home, not King's Landing. She informs Tommen he's mistaken and that King's Landing is her home because that's where her family is. The scene then cuts to Cersei going to talk to Margaery, and I want to make a very quick point of something here. The conversation between Tommen and Cersei is still within the same scene, and while it may look like it's unrelated, it's very relevant to the next part of the scene coming up. And even in that brief conversation, there is a beginning, middle, and end that reaches a point. It's pressing at Cersei's love of being queen and wanting to remain in King's Landing, the core part of Cersei's upcoming interaction with Margaery. So Cersei goes to talk to Margaery, who is going to be the new queen, and notice how just like in the alien scene, though Margaery is doing the talking, it overlaps with a visual of Cersei, reminding us that Cersei is the one driving the scene, and it will be framed through her perspective. The camera focuses on her reactions and mannerisms, just like the aliens scene does with Ripley. And while it may not look like it, there is conflict, with a clear beginning, middle, and end. Though Cersei is offering her help to Margaery to get her ready to become the queen, it's painful for Cersei to do so because she wants nothing more than to remain queen. The conflict in this scene is Cersei's internal want. The conflict in the alien scene is a lot easier to identify. Burke has a very clear want. He's asking Ripley to be the advisor, but Ripley knows how dangerous it is. The ball is in Ripley's court. Though Burke is the one with the need, Ripley is the one that controls her fate and whether Burke's goal is met. And a big factor in the scene is that Burke doesn't get an answer. He gives up. He leaves his business card for Ripley to think about it, giving Ripley all the power, and shows that she is driving the scene. So the audience is presented with new information that will project the story in a new direction. decision. And going back to the dinner party guideline, they leave early without an answer. We know Ripley will either accept or deny Burke's offer. This is the point of the scene. And to reiterate, she is driving the scene, she is framed last, giving the audience enough time to wonder what her decision will be. So not every scene will have a clear external want and need. In the scene from Game of Thrones, even though on its face the scene is just two people cordially talking without any animosity, the conflict of the scene is Cersei's internal want of remaining queen. She is facing an insurmountable obstacle of Marjorie becoming queen, inevitably taking away the thing she wants most. This scene also has a trifecta of things that it propels in a new direction. 1. Cersei learns Marjorie may be pregnant. 2. Cersei deals with the inevitability of losing her title. And 3. The audience is left with illusions that Cersei is planning something. So while these two scenes each follow the fundamental funnel method, I think what makes them great is that they establish who is driving the scene from the very beginning, they treat the scene as a short film, giving it its own mini 3-act structure, and finally, not only do the scenes come to a point, they give the audience new information that projects the story in a new direction. When you watch film and TV, you can see how not every scene accomplishes these three things, but still follows the funnel method, and there's not anything inherently wrong or bad with that. But scenes can be more impactful and do more for your story if you implement these three things. If you want another example of a movie that does this extremely well, go watch Chinatown. If you're like me, you probably heard that Chinatown is the best written screenplay of all time. I personally don't believe it is, but I think the reason why it's repeated is because it's so efficient at pushing the characters, plot, and story in a new direction with each scene. I find a lot of amateur and beginner writers make this mistake. While even amateur writers are pretty good at putting conflict in their scenes, they oftentimes write scenes that start way too early, which causes the audience to lose confidence and get bored. The audience feels emotionally distant to the scene because there's no one driving it, and oftentimes even if the writer has a point, there's no new information learned. They retread the same story beats far too many times. So my advice to a lot of newer and beginner writers is to keep these things in mind when outlining your scenes, and this advice is not exclusive to film. I think a lot of people that are writing novels make this mistake too, though I do think that novels are a little more lenient on how early you can start your scene. So I hope this video was helpful in covering a few elements I think are often left out of many scene structure related advice. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. My name is Cameron, and thank you guys so much for watching.